The biggest cost if you're starting to make your own wine at home, surprisingly, is glass. But it doesn't have to be like that, and there's some great cost-saving measures that I can give you that'll help you get started for a lot less money. If you do a search on Kijiji or your local marketplace, you're probably going to find that there's used wine bottles for sale or used glass carboys or any winemaking supplies. That's a great place to get started. You can often buy a complete wine setup on there for a fraction of the cost that you'll pay. That being said, if you do have to buy brand new, the costs there are still substantially lower than you might think. The first item that you're going to have to get is a kit of all the carboy and the fermenter, siphon hoses, corker, that kind of thing. And this kit from Ultimate Winemaking here online is $205. Now, I found if I went to my local brew shop, I could get that same kit for less money there, about $145 for the same thing that you see there. You're going to need that, plus you're going to need at least 30 wine bottles to get started. The cost of wine bottles, if you're looking on Amazon, is somewhere around $25, $26 for 12 bottles, and you need about 30 for a wine kit. The good thing about glass on Amazon as well is you do get like a volume discount, so oftentimes you can buy a pack of 48 wine bottles for $70. So that's actually quite a bit less. Okay, so let's do some math here. So 205.70 plus our wine bottles, and we're going to take the discount here. We're going to add our $69.99 to that. And your first wine kit is probably around the neighborhood of $75. You can get them for cheaper when they're on sale, and the higher end kits are more, but generally speaking, they're around $75. So we add our $75 to that, and that will make about 28 to 30 bottles. So we'll go on the low end here. Let's divide that by 28 to see what the cost per bottle is. So that gets us a bottle cost of $12.52 for your first kit that you make. Now this isn't bad at all, because after your initial startup cost of your first 30 bottles or 48 or however many bottles of wine you decide to make, it starts becoming a heck of a lot cheaper. Now that we have our initial wine, once you've drank that wine and you make wine again, we can take this same calculation and go 75 and divide that by 28. And just like that, our bottle cost now has dropped to $2.68 per bottle. That starts getting really, really cheap once you start to accumulate your own glass and accumulate your own stuff. Now, something to also kind of keep in mind as far as cost goes, if you drink a lot of wine or you like having your wine age, that's kind of where some of the money is going to go. But you can pump a wine pretty good by only having an extra 1 or 2 carboys. So if you've got like a total of 3 carboys, you can bulk age in the carboy. You can cap that thing just like you would a wine bottle and then let it age in there and then only bottle it when you're kind of ready or you have glass available to put that wine into. So once you've decided kind of how many bottles of wine or how many different varieties you want, that's kind of how you scale your operation. Now, I wouldn't recommend going crazy here. You probably only need 2 glass carboys and 1 primary fermenter. If you want to scale that up, the cost to scale it up is cheap. You're going to buy 1 more carboy only, and that's all you're going to really need, because now you can switch always from the one to the other when you're racking. And the primary, it only sits in there for maybe 2 weeks. So you cook one batch, goes into a carboy, you can immediately start cooking another batch to go in the next carboy. As long as you're leaving 1 carboy available to always go back and forth with the racking, you can scale it up pretty quick and you can make a lot of wine really quickly. Now, there are some costs of consumables as well. You will always need to buy new corks every time that you're corking off a new batch. You can expect to pay about $5 to do 30 bottles. And optionally, if you want to cap them like we do, that's another $5 for a batch of wine. I find the caps are nice, and it lets me easily keep track of what's in what bottle. I just put a number on the top, and then I use my wine making spreadsheet to kind of keep track of it like that. So that's what I found works good for us. The corks are not included in the wine kits, and neither are the caps. Some kits will include labels, but if you want to dress it up and you want to give wine away, labeling might be an additional cost as well. Usually they're pretty good price at your local wine shop, or you can buy them online as well. Now, if you want to make your own wine, you don't want to buy a wine kit, you want to do it from fruit. A pretty substantial part of your cost is going to be sugar. In Canada, that's probably a bigger deal than it is down in the US, but initially, you're probably cheaper off actually buying the kits than if you were to buy the fruit, the sugar, because there's also other things that you need if you're going to be doing your own wines from scratch. Like, then you got to buy yeast, yeast nutrient, stabilizers, the potassium sorbate, and there's just a host of other things that you need to buy. A fruit bag. I mean, there's just quite a few extra things. If you're initially starting, I strongly urge you just make a couple of kits, get a hold of that system, and after that, find some good wine recipes. There's nothing wrong with going with fruit, but it just will teach you the fundamentals before you bite off more than you can chew and you make a couple of bad batches of wine. As far as overall value goes of making your own wines, I feel like the wines that we make from the kits at home are much better than the wines that we would be buying at the store, and it's a fraction of the cost. And another great benefit of this is once you have a batch that you really like, you can continue to make that as long as you want, and they also make great gifts.